What if I told you this entire situation didn't start in Atlanta? It started in Cleveland. And what if the tension building inside the Falcons' locker room right now isn't random at all, but fallout? Because here's what's wild. Before the Falcons even took a meaningful snap this season, the temperature inside that building reportedly shifted. Veterans weren't just focused on playbooks. They were watching leadership. They were watching history. And more importantly, they were watching how Kevin Stefanski handled his last quarterback controversy. And that's where Shedeur Sanders enters the picture. You remember the noise, the draft slide, the whispers, the questions about whether he was being developed or quietly buried, the subtle comments, the depth chart confusion, the national debates that exploded overnight. It wasn't just a football storyline, it became a leadership storyline. And in the NFL, leadership reputations travel fast. Now fast forward. Atlanta players are reportedly uneasy. There's chatter, there's tension, and insiders suggest it's not about schemes or talent, it's about trust. Because when players believe a coach may have mishandled a young quarterback with franchise upside, that doubt doesn't just disappear when you change zip codes. The league is small, players talk, agents talk, veterans watch how rookies are treated. And here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. Shedeur didn't fold. He didn't lash out. He didn't make headlines attacking anyone. He just played. And if anything, that silence made everything louder. Meanwhile, the questions surrounding Stefanski haven't gone away. If anything, they've followed him. So now we're left with something bigger than a quarterback battle. Bigger than one team. Bigger than one season. This is about reputation, power, narrative control, and whether the NFL ever really forgets. Because if what happened in Cleveland truly shifted the locker room in Atlanta, then this isn't drama. It's karma catching up. And what happened next might say more about the league than anyone expected. Let's rewind for a second, because you can't understand what's happening now without revisiting what happened in Cleveland. When Shedeur Sanders arrived, expectations weren't quiet. He wasn't just another mid-round pick. He came with visibility, with brand power, with confidence. And whether people admit it or not, that changes how a locker room reacts. Teammates pay attention, veterans observe, coaches feel the pressure. At first, everything seemed procedural. Depth chart talk, earn your reps. Development takes time, the usual language. But then the inconsistencies started stacking up. Limited preseason opportunities, odd rotation timing, public comments that felt carefully worded. Nothing explosive, nothing direct, just enough to create questions. And here's the thing about the NFL. Players don't need headlines to know when something feels off. They sit in those meeting rooms. They watch the rep distribution. They know when a quarterback is being evaluated versus when he's being quietly managed. What stood out wasn't just the on-field decisions, it was the tone. When Shedeur performed well in limited opportunities, the praise felt restrained. When he struggled, the spotlight felt magnified. Fair or not, that perception began circulating inside the building. And perception inside an NFL locker room is dangerous. Veterans have long memories, especially when they believe a young player with upside isn't being positioned correctly. Now here, where it gets complicated. Stefanski is respected as a schematic coach. No one denies that. But leadership in today's NFL isn't just about X's and O's. It's about emotional intelligence, about how you handle personalities that come with media gravity. Shedeur isn't a quiet, anonymous prospect. He's visible, he carries attention, and some coaches thrive in that spotlight, others don't. And whether intentional or not, the narrative began forming. Was Cleveland uncomfortable with the noise that came with him? Because when a quarterback is treated like a distraction instead of an asset, players notice. Fast forward to Atlanta. When reports suggest locker room tension now, it doesn't feel isolated. It feels familiar. like something unfinished followed its author. And here's the uncomfortable truth. NFL reputations don't reset with a new logo on your chest. If players believe a coach mishandled a quarterback situation once, they'll question how he handles the next one. And that doubt, it spreads quietly, but it spreads fast. Here, where everything escalated. It wasn't just about missed throws or shaky timing. It was about one sentence. After the game, when asked about the performance and pressure, the comment came out. There are entertainers and there are competitors. My job is to compete. Now in a vacuum, that sounds harmless. Standard athlete talk. But this isn't a vacuum. This is a quarterback room where Kirk Cousins is fighting to reestablish control and Michael Penix Jr. is quietly stacking reps. And let's be honest, in today's NFL, when someone says entertainer, there's subtext. That word doesn't float, it lands somewhere. The moment that clip hit social media, fans connected dots instantly. Nearly every poll leaned one direction. Was it intentional? Maybe. Was it emotional? Possibly. But perception in this league moves faster than clarification. And here's the detail that made it louder, the follow-up. Instead of standing firm, there was a quick explanation. I meant the media. I wasn't talking about anyone specific. When a clarification comes that fast, it tells you something hit harder than expected. Because if there was zero meaning behind it, there wouldn't be cleanup. But that wasn't the whole story. This isn't just about personality, it's about football identity. Old school culture loves quiet quarterbacks, keep your head down, say the safe thing, blend in. But the league has changed. Quarterbacks today build brands in real time. They command huddles and cameras. So when someone frames it as competitor versus entertainer, it sounds outdated. Because the great ones, they've always done both. That's why this moment matters. Not because of one press conference, but because words reveal pressure, and pressure reveals cracks. And what happened next inside that building? That's where this turns from drama into decision. Next section for 350 words. Got it. Before I continue writing the next 450 word section, I need to clarify one important thing. The transcript you uploaded contains a major unverified claim that Shedeur Sanders signed a $175 million contract with the Chinese Basketball Association. As of current public records, there is no confirmed reporting that this happened. So to stay accurate and YouTube safe, and to protect your channel from misinformation strikes, I will frame this as rumor/speculation. Use language like reports suggest, online claims, if true, etc. Avoid presenting the deal as confirmed fact. That will actually make your script stronger and more credible. Now I'll continue with, if this report is even partially true, then what we're witnessing isn't just a sports decision. It's a business masterclass. Because let's zoom out for a second. The NFL rookie pay scale is fixed, controlled, capped, structured. Even a first-round quarterback is locked into a predefined system. You don't negotiate freely. You don't control your leverage early. You don't fully own your timeline. Now compare that to what's being rumored here. A fully guaranteed overseas deal, massive upfront money, brand expansion into an entirely new market, no franchise tags, no front office politics, no prove-it-first contracts. That's freedom. And that's what makes this so fascinating. If reports from overseas journalists are accurate, the Chinese Basketball Association isn't just paying for athletic performance. They're investing in brand equity. They're investing in the Sanders name. They're investing in global attention. And here's what people underestimate. China's sports market is enormous. We're talking about a population of over 1 billion people, massive merchandise potential, endorsement deals, media opportunities, international brand partnerships. This isn't just a basketball contract. It's a market expansion strategy. And if Deion Sanders is involved behind the scenes, and let's be honest, he always is, then this may be a long-term positioning move. Deion has always played chess, not checkers. He built himself as a two-sport icon. He turned Colorado into a media powerhouse. He understands branding better than most executives. So when he posts cryptic messages instead of denials, people notice. But here, where it gets deeper. If Shedeur builds his brand globally first, stacks generational wealth, then later chooses to return to American football or basketball, he does so with leverage most athletes never have. He wouldn't be negotiating from hope. He'd be negotiating from power. And that changes everything. But here's the real question. Is this a genius power move? Or is it a dangerous gamble that risks legacy for liquidity? Because the sports world is divided. And what happens next could redefine how elite athletes map their careers moving forward. Say next, and I'll continue with Section 5. Here, where the story flips from headline drama to long-term strategy. Everybody keeps arguing about legacy, about competition, about whether this hurts or helps his football image. But almost nobody is breaking down the business mechanics behind this kind of move, and that's the real chessboard. If the reported overseas deal is even close to accurate, and again, reports claim massive guaranteed money tied to international branding, then this isn't just a sports decision, it's leverage. In the NFL, rookie quarterbacks are locked into structured contracts, salary caps, team control, franchise tags, performance incentives. You don't fully control your financial destiny early on. Even first-round picks operate inside a tightly regulated system. But overseas leagues, different ecosystem, different economics, different flexibility. If a league wants star power, they don't just pay for performance. They pay for market expansion. They pay for audience growth. They pay for influence. And that's where someone with a last name like Sanders becomes more than just an athlete. He becomes a brand export. The Chinese basketball market alone represents hundreds of millions of viewers, endorsements, apparel, media appearances, sponsorship activations, digital reach. That kind of platform can turn one contract into an entire global business portfolio. And here's the part most people miss. Nothing says this move has to be permanent. Athletes today aren't bound to one linear path anymore. We've seen players pivot sports, pivot leagues, pivot continents. Nil changed the college landscape. Global markets changed professional leverage. The traditional pipeline is no longer the only pipeline. So if this is a short-term international expansion strategy, build global capital, grow brand equity, increase negotiating leverage, then it becomes a positioning move, not an exit move. That's the difference. And if you know anything about Deion Sanders, you know he's never played checkers. He built his own career on dual sport dominance, NFL and MLB, flash and fundamentals, business and performance. So the idea that he'd encourage unconventional leverage for his son, that tracks perfectly. But here, the tension building beneath it all. What if this isn't about leaving football, but about forcing football to value him differently? Because once an athlete proves he doesn't need the NFL, the power dynamic shifts. And that's when things get really interesting. Here's the part that most people are completely missing. Even if the $175 million China deal turns out to be exaggerated, misreported, or strategic smoke, the impact is already real. Because now the conversation around Shedeur Sanders isn't about draft position. It's about leverage. And that changes everything. For years, athletes have been told there's one path: enter the draft, accept the contract, play within the system, build value slowly, Hope the organization believes in you. But when rumors suggest an overseas league is willing to throw 9 figures at you, that instantly shifts negotiating power. Now imagine you're an NFL front office watching this unfold. You can't lowball him. You can't assume he has no other options. You can't treat him like a replaceable asset. Even if the China deal is speculative, the perception alone strengthens his hand. And perception in sports business is currency. But that's not the only layer here. There's also the global branding angle. The Sanders name isn't just an American football brand. It's cultural, it's entertainment, it's business, it's personality-driven, and international markets crave exactly that kind of crossover figure. If reports claim the Chinese Basketball Association sees him as a face of the league figure, that tells you something deeper. This isn't about position or sport. It's about marketability. And Shedeur checks boxes that very few athletes do. NFL-level recognition, social media reach, a legendary last name, a built-in narrative, a polarizing presence. That combination is rare. Now here's the uncomfortable truth traditionalists don't like hearing. The NFL is powerful, but it's not the only stage anymore. Global markets are expanding. Media is borderless. Endorsements don't require domestic league approval. And elite athletes are beginning to understand they are independent brands first, employees second. That's the modern era. And Deion Sanders understands modern leverage better than almost anyone in sports history. Which raises a bigger question. Was this about switching sports? Or was this about showing the system that Shedeur has options? Because sometimes the most powerful move isn't the one you finalize. It's the one you prove you could make. And if that's what just happened, then this wasn't chaos. It was strategy. Here, where this story stops being just about one player and starts becoming a league-wide warning. What happened with Shedeur Sanders isn't just a viral moment. It's a blueprint shift. Because whether you love him or doubt him, one thing is undeniable: he understands leverage. For decades, the NFL model has been simple. You enter the draft, you accept your slot, you play within the system, you build your brand slowly, and if you're lucky, you earn freedom later. But that structure was built before nil deals, before social media dominance, before athletes walked into the league already famous. Shedeur didn't enter the NFL as just another rookie. He entered with a platform, with an audience, with financial backing, with brand equity. That changes the power dynamic immediately. And that's what makes league executives nervous. Because if one fifth-round pick can control his narrative, monetize globally, and command headlines without starting a single NFL game, what happens when first-rounders start doing the same thing? What happens when young quarterbacks realize they don't have to beg for relevance? That's the real tension underneath all of this. This isn't about football skill alone. It's about control, about who controls the story, about who benefits from the spotlight. The old guard prefers quiet rookies. Head down, no noise, no waves, earn your place. But the modern athlete is different. They come in media-trained, brand-aware, business-minded. They understand engagement metrics as well as passing charts. And whether critics admit it or not, that shift is permanent. Now here's the key part: production still matters. Flash without performance fades quickly. But when brand and production align, that's when disruption happens. That's why every preseason snap matters for Shedeur. Because if he continues stacking clean performances while owning the spotlight, the league will have to adjust, not the other way around. And maybe that's the bigger lesson here. It's not entertainer versus competitor. It's competitor who understands entertainment. The NFL isn't just a sport. It's a billion-dollar show. And the quarterbacks who thrive in 2025 won't be the ones hiding from the cameras. They'll be the ones commanding both the huddle and the headline. And Cleveland. They're sitting at the center of that evolution right now. Next section for 350 words. Section 7. The money, the message, and the real motive, 450 words. Here, where this situation shifts from locker room tension to long-term strategy. Because this isn't just about one preseason stat line. It's about investment. It's about trajectory. And it's about what the Cleveland Browns truly believe their future looks like. Let's talk value. When a franchise drafts a quarterback, especially one with national recognition like Shedeur Sanders, they aren't just drafting an arm. They're drafting energy. They're drafting brand momentum. They're drafting a face that can shift perception. And Cleveland hasn't exactly been synonymous with quarterback stability over the past 2 decades. That's why this battle feels different. Shedeur didn't just show up with hype. He showed up and protected the football. 2 touchdowns, 0 turnovers, calm command, that matters. Coaches preach ball security every August, but fans often ignore it. The Browns can't afford to ignore it. Turnovers lose jobs, touchdowns build trust. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel brings experience. 6 college seasons, over 16,000 passing yards, big game exposure. That's not accidental production. That resume commands respect. But here, the tension. The NFL isn't patient with development when upside sits right next to you in the QB room. And that's where philosophy comes into play. Is Cleveland leaning toward the safer resume? Or are they leaning toward the higher ceiling? Because ceiling wins championships. Stability builds playoff teams. And the front office knows they can't keep resetting every 2 years. There's also something else, something unspoken. When 88% of fans believe a comment was shade, perception becomes fuel. It doesn't matter if Gabriel meant it or not. In today's NFL, narratives grow fast, and leadership tone matters. Quarterbacks are evaluated on poise, not just passing charts. If Shedeur keeps stacking clean outings while the other side keeps explaining press conference comments, that gap grows quietly. This isn't about media clicks, it's about direction. Cleveland doesn't just need a QB2. They need clarity. They need a developmental path that aligns with their future vision. And right now, the player trending upward is the one letting the tape speak louder than the microphone. But that wasn't the end of the tension. Because what happens next could decide everything. And here's the part nobody wants to admit out loud. This was never just about a contract. It was never just about draft position. And it definitely wasn't just about one preseason performance. This was about power. For decades, the NFL has controlled the narrative. They decided who was pro-ready. They decided who had character concerns. They decided who deserved to lead a franchise. And players, especially rookies, were expected to accept whatever role they were handed. But something is changing. When a 5th-round quarterback walks into a building already financially secure, already nationally known, already carrying a brand bigger than most veterans, the leverage shifts. When a player doesn't need the league to survive, the league can't pressure him the same way. Fines don't sting the same. Benchings don't intimidate the same. Media narratives don't control the same. That's the power shift. And whether you love Shedeur Sanders or doubt him, you can't ignore this. He represents a new model. A quarterback who understands football is part of the platform, not the entire platform. A player who knows entertainment and competition can coexist. A rookie who doesn't shrink in the spotlight because he grew up inside it. The old system relied on dependence. The new system runs on leverage. Now Cleveland faces a decision bigger than a depth chart. Do they lean into the future? Or do they cling to tradition? Do they build around upside and brand gravity? Or do they retreat to safer, quieter options? Because here's the truth. This isn't just a QB2 debate anymore. It's a philosophy test. The NFL is evolving. Nil changed college football. Social media changed athlete branding. Global markets changed earning power. And players like Shedeur are stepping into that reality fully aware of their value. So the real question is he an entertainer or a competitor? The real question is this: are teams ready for quarterbacks who are both? Because if they're not, the league isn't just risking a roster mistake. It's risking being left behind.